All right, peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Now, before I jump into my stories, I did want to give a shout out to the artist Glitter Lucci. Now, she's an up-and-coming rapper based out of Atlanta, Georgia, or like my cousin who's from Atlanta would say, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. So, Atlanta. Her Instagram handle is glitter_set_glow. And so definitely check her out. She has a music video that's also getting ready to drop. So if you're somebody who's into rap music and trap and everything like that, be sure to check her out, show your love, show your support. And like I said, I started a shout out series. The next episode will actually be that first week of June. So anybody who just has anything that they would like showcased, anything that they're proud of, whether it's their music, whether it's a SoundCloud page, whether it's a blog, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube channel, whether it's their own business, or maybe there's a product that they offer or a service that they sell. Maybe it's a book. Maybe you just got your grandma's recipes and she has the best recipe for cornbread and there's no way to mess it up because it'll never be dry. Like whatever it is, if you're proud of it and you would like it showcased, shoot me an email at calvinbmichaels@gmail.com. I will gladly include it in the next shout out series. Just make sure, like I said, don't send me nothing too crazy. I can do crazy, but not too crazy. For me, too crazy would be like you got your own meth business and you like, hey, it's black owned business though, so you gonna support me, brother. Not the meth, okay? So just, you know what I mean. Anyway, let's jump into the stories. So, like I said, there's been a lot of stories that really have jumped out, and I couldn't get to them because I was committed to something else for like the last 2 weeks, and I had to get it done. No ifs, ands, or buts. But these two stories definitely were pulling at all of my patience, and I wanted to get to them so bad. So I said, you know what, even though it's been a week and a half, I'm still talking about them. One, because I live in Washington, D.C., and two, because I went to Howard. So both of these stories connect with me. But not only do they connect, but they also bring into fruition everything I've been saying about gentrification and about the behavioral patterns that come with people who move into spaces that were not initially theirs, and how sometimes they will try to take over or try to erase what was already there in favor of making a life more comfortable for themselves, but not everybody else around them. So let's jump into everything. So I'm gonna merge the two stories together into one, section. So part one is a conversation about somebody who pretty much tried their best to shut down pretty much some go-go music in an area. And so here's the context. In DC, you have two streets that run into each other, and they make this really popular intersection. It's the intersection of Georgia Avenue and Florida Avenue. Now, Florida Avenue, to put things into context, runs into the U Street corridor. And the U Street corridor used to be the Black Broadway of DC. So this strip of DC, you used to have a lot of prominent black performers and entertainers perform all up and down this area. There used to be so many theaters and clubs and everything like this back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And then, the riots happened after King died, and a lot of that area was burned down. And then you had the war on drugs, you had the crack epidemic, you had development come in, you had a lot of people lose business during several of the recessions. The recession that happened in there was two recessions in the 80s, and then also even a recession that happened in 2008. A lot of things just happened. So a lot of the original businesses that were once there have all shifted into something else. I think only 3 of the original black-owned businesses on that street are still there. Ben's Chili Bowl, the Flower Shop, and Industrial Bank. Other than that, everything else is something new. It's still in the same buildings, but, it's something new. And so that U Street today is still a booming area. There's lots of nightclubs, restaurants, bars, just attractions, museums, everything. There's a lot to do on that street. So it's always very busy. It's just a lot of everything going on. It's kind of like a cultural center for that ward in D.C. And then the cross street, Georgia Avenue, one of the main arteries that run through DC. You take Georgia Avenue, it can get you to Gallery Place, Chinatown. You keep going that way, it can get you closer by the monuments in the U.S. Capitol. If you go the opposite way, it'll take you to Howard University. If you keep going, it takes you to the Petworth neighborhood. If you go even further, it'll take you to Silver Spring, Maryland. And so that intersection has always been a very lively intersection. I remember when I first moved here, I was just amazed at just everything that was there. Because I'm from some small town in Washington State. So when I got to DC, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, this is what I've always wanted. And so, long story short, there's a building on the corner. It used to be like a telecommunications place, and then it turned into a Metro PCS. And remember that T-Mobile is the parent company for Metro PCS, so remember that for later. So anyway, for the last 24 years, this building has always played go-go music on the loudspeakers. And if you don't know, go-go music is pretty much the sound of DC. It's a very live genre of music with lots of percussion, lots of instrumentation. It's really great if you ever see it live. It's cool on audio and in studio, but if you can actually go to a go-go or see a go-go show or hear performance live, there's just a richness to it like that. If you're a music head, you'll appreciate it. It's one of the greatest things you'll ever hear. Even me coming in when I first moved here, I talk about it in my podcast, in my Howard University series. I talk about when my father was actually bringing me to Howard for the first time. One of the first things I remember was hearing that go-go music from that same location on my way to campus to move into the dorm. And so I'll upload that podcast episode probably this upcoming week too. The Howard University series, it's like 7 parts, but that would be the first part. But anyway, so that music has been a staple there for the last 24 years. Now, directly across the street, past the CVS, they built a high-rise luxury apartment condo, whatever you want to call it, this place called the Shea. Built it right directly across from this location. And so the Shea was constructed, and then some of the people who lived in the Shea felt some kind of way about the music that was being played. And there was one individual who really just couldn't stand it. He just was like, there's an issue with it. So what he did was, he went and he complained to the city. The city was like, there's nothing we can do because, one, they're not breaking any noise ordinances because, one, they turn the music off at 10 o'clock p.m., so after 10 p.m. the music's not on. And secondly, the music's not above the sound ordinances. It's not breaking any of the decibel laws. And so there's nothing they can actually do because the music is not louder than the fire trucks. It's not louder than all the things that would be necessary for that area. So there's nothing that they're doing wrong, all right? So the individual said, I think not. So what did he do? He called T-Mobile because T-Mobile, like I said, is the parent company of that Metro PCS. He called corporate. I don't know if he called or sent a letter or did an email. When folks are pissed off and determined, they'll find a way. And so he reaches out to T-Mobile. T-Mobile corporate calls down to that Metro PCS and was like, y'all got to turn the music off. And so for the first time in 24 years, that music gets turned off. A lot of the people in the area were outraged, pissed off because they're like, what the heck? Because at the same time, this area has always been a predominantly black area for years. Now, DC has been changing. When I moved to DC, it was still about 63% black. Today, I believe it's 47%. Because I remember in 2011, it dropped down below 50% for the first time in years. Now, DC at its peak blackness was in the 70s and the 80s, and there's been some shifts and changes. But anyway, so that area has always been predominantly black, and that music and that sound was always something that was, a staple in that area. And so he was able to get it shut down. So with all the outrage, this man was so confident he didn't mind going on the news and talking about it. So let's jump into that.
Afternoon before the protest got underway.
Many things are not illegal. It's that disrespect. If it's not breaking the law, why are you trying to move?
Benjamin Kozlowski lives nearby and says his issue is with the volume.
It's just too loud. I don't mind the music. Go-go's part of the DC culture. What I do mind is the loudness, and it really hurts my ears to walk by.
So I'm going to say the behavior I see in this and in the next story we'll jump into, I like to call authoritative entitlement, where not only are you entitled, but when you don't get your way, you will make sure that other people are inconvenienced on your behalf until you get your way. So his argument is that it hurts his ears. It hurts my ears. And my argument to him would be, well, one, when you moved into the Shea, you knew exactly what you were getting into before you signed that lease because that music is always played. Every time you would have went to that building and go to that leasing office, you would have heard the music. Now, the music is not that loud, and you can't really hear it from the Shea. Because mind you, it's about a block and a half down the street. But his issue is when he walks around it, it hurts his ears. And I'm like, the great thing about that area is there's so many additional routes you can take where you don't have to walk past that building and hear that music. So I was like, save that. And I think a selfish aspect as far as it hurting his ears is, one, you never thought about what it felt like to the few residents that live in that area when they had to construct the building that you live in. If you've ever lived in a space where they're building a high-rise next to you, that's a lot of noise for 18 months, especially when they have to put in the cement to build the foundation all night. Because even next to me, they just built a high-rise directly next to where I live in. All night, every day, every morning at 6 a.m. for like the last 18 months, it was... And then, of course, you got all the big trucks on the street, and it's tearing up the street, and it's potholes. So I done drove over 1 million nails. I done replaced my tires like 3-4 times. I'm about to sue the city, I swear. And so, it's just all that noise with the Shea. Like building a high-rise, it's a cumbersome task, that it's a lot of noise, it disrupts the entire area. Now, to also be fair, that area was initially not a residential area. The only initial residents that lived in that direct location would have been the people that owned the businesses that were under their, like the business would be there and they lived on top of it. Now, those times have changed, and now those properties are for other people and everything like that. But that was never really a residential area. So my argument is, you can't move into an area that was initially pretty much a cultural hotspot and try to turn it into Evergreen Terrace. I think is a very selfish aspect. And the fact that you, of all people, a city of nearly 700,000 people, has never really gone out of the way to complain about that specific location. And then here you come. You done moved into it from wherever you come from, and because this doesn't fit the perspective of how you want to see things, you want to get it shut down. And then you're unapologetic about it. And, I respect the city's culture, but it hurts my ears. The fact that you use my, it would have been different if maybe you had a large group of people complaining, and I still would have dragged all of them on this channel as well. But my argument is, when you move into a space that you're initially not native to, You are supposed to embrace whatever is there. You are supposed to try to become a part of the culture that's already established. When you go out of your way to chip away and take away things that you don't like just because you need to be a bit more comfortable, and you do it at the expense of the people who are already initially there, you strip away the culture of that location. And pretty much what happens is the area becomes what I like to say franchised. If you've ever been to have you ever been to like a city or a town that literally has no culture because everything there is bought out, everything is franchised, everything is Target, Best Buy, Subway, Starbucks, whatever other stores that are commercially popular, and then there's nothing of cultural significance there because it's all just commercial industry. And so, you know, these are areas where there's no element that just makes there's no character. And so you find a bunch of towns like that, and it's like you move from one to the other, and it's all the same experience. And I think a lot of people like this individual, they have like this cloud of requirements and values that they believe in. And so everywhere they move, they take that cloud with them. And eventually, they will chip away at whatever is there until everything fits around the spectrum of that cloud. And it sucks the life out of the area. So I had an issue with him saying that. Now let's jump into the other bit. This other bit deals with Howard University. Now, Howard University, like I said, has been there since 1867. And Howard University, the location is... actually pause for 1 second. Going back to the other guy. The other part that got me with him in the noise was this. Directly behind the Shea is just 2 nightclubs or lounges or bars. And I mean, they got rooftops and everything. Music be cranking all night, all day. So you have all that noise there. About a block and a half the other way is Howard University Hospital. So you have the ambulance and the sirens going everywhere. Behind the building that he's complaining about, you have the Howard Theater, and directly across from the Howard Theater is this patch of grass where I don't know what's happened, but in the last 2 years, a bunch of white folks, I don't know what they do, but they stay getting the DJ and the music cranking, and they got like mini block parties going on right in that same spot. And I'm like, it's funny that none of that other noise bothered you, but for some reason, this one location from the store, somehow, that's the only thing you hear. That's the only thing that bothers you. But you're fine with the sirens. You're fine with the clothes behind you. You're fine with whatever little beer garden, company picnic, tuna fish sandwich, blast the Fleetwood Mac music section they got going on behind that building. None of that bothers you. It's just that one location. So I was like, okay. And then even when you look at the picture of the Shea, I'll post it. Like, I knew the minute they started constructing this and I saw that picture, I was like, yeah, this area, they're about to gentrify the heck out of this. Like, because even that area used to not even really have a nickname. Now it's called, it's Shaw. Let's go to Shaw. When I came up in there, Shaw was not the area that you went to go hang out at. You walk straight through Shaw and mind your business. You speak to who, hey, how you doing? And you keep it moving. And so now Shaw has turned into like this hot touristy attraction, but just the picture alone, I'm like, I don't know if that was supposed to be Meryl Streep or something, but like, just the picture, it reminds me of somebody saying, like, looking down, like, yes, I'm about to take all of this, and slowly, that's what's happening in the area. So like with him, I was like, blah. But anyway, back to the Howard story. So Howard University, like I said, you go down Georgia Avenue, but when you get up the hill, it sits on a hill. It's kind of like secluded from the rest of the area. So the main campus where they have the yard, there's no cross streets that would run through it. It stretches from Georgia Avenue to 4th Street. So it's 3 blocks of just, buildings and grass and sidewalks and everything like that. And at most HBCUs, and even pretty much at most colleges, you always have a grassy area, like a courtyard. So Howard has the yard. And on the yard, then you have the sidewalks that cross through it, and people walk on the sidewalks. A lot of the students have been pissed off because many of the newer residents who are moving into the area, they're taking their dogs onto the campus to go and relieve themselves on the yard. And so a lot of, and now mind you, the people are picking it up and scooping it in the bag and throwing it away. But the issue is a lot of the students think it's very, 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 just inconsiderate, and it's disrespectful to the legacy of that university. And so I want to play a clip of one of the guys who felt some kind of way about the response and reception that he was getting, and then we'll talk.
They're in part of D.C., so they have to work within D.C. If they don't want to be within D.C., then move the campus. I think we need to work together, and I don't think it should be a he or there or here. It's our community, and that's how it should be.
Just move the whole campus, huh? Just move the whole thing. Just move it all. If y'all don't want to make me comfortable, y'all, all 13,000 of y'all can move. And so again, it goes back to that conversation of authoritative entitlement. Not only is this man entitled to think that he has a right to walk his dog on a private campus that's privately owned, just because they don't have a gate doesn't mean it's your property. On private property, he feels that because he can't go to that private property and let his dog take a poop on a yard that, this is the same yard where you've had so many greats of the past walk through. I mean, you had Felicia Rashad's and the Thurgood Marshall and Elaine Locke and so many others. I mean, just Charles R. Drew, like just so many people who played a pivotal role into the greatness that makes Black America America. Like, even when you see that picture of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X together, that was right there at Howard University. You know what I mean? And so there is a rich history and a rich legacy on that campus. And it's almost something that's sacred and sentimental. And so, you know, the fact that he felt so entitled that, okay, well, if he can't walk his dog up there, well, then they need to move the whole thing. And the other bit that gets me is, because I know where he lives. I know the neighborhood he lives in. Like, literally, there is a dog park across the street from where he lives. So when you're talking about taking your dog to Howard, like, here's the thing. Howard is not across through to anything. Like, if you go to that campus, you're specifically going to that campus. It's not like you would cut through Howard to get anywhere in the city, because that whole area is kind of just its own little space. So you made a conscious decision to go to that campus, go up that big giant hill, take your dog there to relieve themselves. It's not like you were cutting through your neighborhood and it just happened to be there. So one, you're going out of your way to go into this private institution, and pretty much this respect was already there. And the issue is this, like, when I went to Howard, we were always taught, one, don't walk on the grass, because it's kind of like, they used to say it's like bad luck and everything, but you would always walk on the sidewalk. The only time I ever walked on the grass on the yard would be during Yard Fest, when they had the big concert and everything, and there was nowhere else to walk. But other than that, you walked on the sidewalk out of respect for the legacy. And a lot of universities back then, I think they did this at Hampton back in the day, but I remember one of my professors was telling me, like, freshmen at that time, back in the 1800s, were not even allowed to walk on the yard because they wanted them to appreciate the legacy that was there. And so they'd have to figure out other ways to get to class, and then after the freshman year, after they had an appreciation for the campus, they could walk with the yard. Like, it's just, you know, when you belong to a collective that's always been disenfranchised, that's always had an uphill battle for everything, that's never been in a position to just be free and just live, and they've always had to fight and claw for everything. The things that we have, the things that we own, are sentimental to us. They're important to us. We value them. You can clearly see that this man could care less. You know, because one, he wouldn't have had that same verbiage if this was Georgetown. He wouldn't tell Georgetown to move to campus because he can't walk his dog to take a crap there. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have said that stuff at Gallaudet. You know, but again, to him, this is just some little ghetto school with some black folks, and he'll be glad when they're out of there, and he'll be glad when the last few black people in his neighborhood are out of the way too. And then the bit that really gets me is when he starts talking, our community. I'm like, where is the community? In my opinion, DC is one of the most segregated cities in the country. You know, when you're just talking about the aspect of the quality of life amongst the city. You know, DC now, as the city's demographics are changing and you have a lot more white people moving back into the city, one of the things that are not changing is the enrollment in the public schools. So only 1 in 9 of the public high schools in DC even have a white population that's higher than 2%. But I find it funny, the white population in DC is way higher than 2%. So clearly, you know, these are people who, they'll move into the city, their families are there, but the schools aren't good enough. They don't want their kids going to school with those kids. So these kids are going to the private academies. These are the kids going to school over into Virginia, other parts of Maryland, everything like that. So I don't want to hear the aspect of community when you're not really a part of it. And really, when he says community, what he means is this: himself and some of the newer people that have moved in, they create their own collective environment. And now anything that disrupts that collective environment is not a part of the community. That's what he's really saying. A perfect example is, you know, my godmother lives out here. It's funny, she lives like 5 minutes down the street from me. But I remember one time, she and I, we were just chilling. Like, when the spring hits, when it's the summer, we always like to get our crab from the wharf and, you know, get the crab, and we get the music cranking, might have a Heineken or something sitting out there. Just a good old time. We do that all spring, summer, and into the fall. Just out there relaxing, cutting it up, chopping it up. And we were sitting out there, and this random white woman comes up there with these little khaki shorts on. I forgot her name. I'm going to just say she's Allison today. So Allison comes up there, and she's like, hi, I just wanted to let you guys know we'll be implementing quiet hours very soon. So, you know, just want to give you guys a heads up. And we were like, who's we? And quiet hours. And she's like, we. She was saying, you know, there was a meeting. And we were like, what meeting? Who's meeting? And so pretty much what has happened is the newer residents who have moved into my godmom's area, because she used to live in what you would technically call the hood, but it's definitely changed. Like, she gave her house a bunch of facelifts, so she's always kept her house up and everything like that. But a lot of people got pushed out. You know, with the recession, with the increase of you know, the cost of living, people got taxed out and pushed out. And so she's one of the last original residents on her street. Like, she's holding on to that house. She's not giving it up. And so the new people got together. They had an issue with some of what the older residents were doing. They got together, had some meeting, went to the city, and got the city to implement quiet hours on the street. And I'm like, you know what? See, that's what I'm talking about when y'all talk about community. That's some bull crap, because the community that you're talking about is not inclusive to everybody in that space. It's inclusive to who you value and who you believe is worthy to be a part of that community. So cut the crap. You know what I mean? The fact that you have the audacity to say, move a campus that's been there since 1867 because you've been disenfranchised. So to hell with the legacy, to hell with everything before it. I'm here now, it's about me, you people are in my way. And another thing, when you're talking about these people who are moving into these areas, no disrespect to people who move into a place like DC, but a lot of people are not here for the long haul. They're not here to invest in the city. They're here for a job come up or a school opportunity, and then they leave. They go on back to Nebraska or Iowa or wherever they go, and then they take everything with them. That, because mind you, they'll come into a city, strip away cultural establishments, build new establishments, and then all of them leave. And when they leave, those establishments go with them. And then the neighborhood becomes destitute again, and then the resources are pulled out, the resources are dried up. And just like I said, with the parents not putting their kids in the schools and everything like that, the money gets taken out of the school system. And those who are left there, they're left with no resources, and they're left with the scraps and whatever's left over. And then all of a sudden, that neighborhood is a bad neighborhood again. That neighborhood is a neighborhood that needs development. That's a neighborhood that, you just kind of, you drive through with the windows up and the doors locked. That's pretty much what happens, because gentrification always works in a cycle. And so with him, I was like, you tried it. And again, a perfect example of DC being gentrified in layers, because it's happened a few times. I look at the area of Georgetown, which is, located by Georgetown University. That area used to be a predominantly black neighborhood because, of course, this is America's history. Black people, we weren't always allowed to live in all parts of town. There was a moment where there were only certain sections of town we could live in. Georgetown was one of them. And so over time, as the university became what it was, that area became a hotspot. And they're like, oh, we need to put shopping and recreation and this, that, and the third. So a lot of the black people that were initially in that area got bought out, taxed out, and pushed out. And the new residents, what was funny was, as they were building WMATA, the subway system, the new residents of that area said, we don't want the subway system coming into our neighborhood. And so even today, there's no way to get to Georgetown on the subway. You got to get off at Foggy Bottom and then walk 10, 11, 12 blocks, go over a bridge, or, you can take a bus. But, and so that's another example where we talk about authoritative entitlement, where you feel disenfranchised, so you will inconvenience everybody else on your behalf to make sure that you're comfortable, and to hell with everybody else. And that's exactly what happened when you talk about Georgetown, and how an area that was once this black region just totally got gutted out. And now that's one of the most expensive areas in the town to live in, and the people who initially were there are not even welcome. And one of the craziest things is, I can't think of the athlete, but there's a famous tennis player who grew up in that neighborhood, this black woman. I totally forgot her name. I'm so mad I can't remember her name. But there was a rich history in that area, and all that's been stripped away. It's not even talked about anymore. So people always associate Georgetown with just the university and it being like a bustling area. So again, when it comes to people talking about, community, like the fact that you can just erase a whole university, the nerve. Who are you? Who are you? When I tell you, when I saw those stories, I was so enraged. Like, my heart was just like, pop, 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 pop. And I wanted to get and do a video so bad. I was so pissed when I saw that crap. But, it just goes to show you. And again, like DC, the research has shown, DC has been probably the most gentrified city in the country right now. Like, when I tell you this crap happened so fast, when I moved here in 06, totally different. It was already in the process of being gentrified then, because around that same time, the old mayor Fenty, I remember he sold off those 21 middle schools. Those middle schools all became real estate property, and I think that really just kickstarted the second and third wave of the whole gentrifying, tear down everything, push everybody out, argument. And the issue is this, there's nothing wrong with, I don't want to say redeveloping, but there's nothing wrong with building new things, creating new attractions, But the issue is when you get rid of all the things of cultural significance to create those attractions, and then those attractions don't really even have any cultural significance, and they're really for a specific demographic of people, and it's not inclusive to everybody already. You're erasing the city's like lineage, the city's life, its culture, its everything. Because even with go-go music, you don't hear it on the radio anymore. Like you hear it every now and then. There's so many things that change. I'll never forget. We were at, God, what restaurant was it? Some little restaurant, and the waitress was like, "Yeah, and we also have Mamba sauce." I said, "Mamba? What's Mamba?" I didn't realize she was trying to say Mambo sauce. I was like, "Okay, you know what?" Anyway, so moving on, but with that, just a hot mess. Did we all see the Ancestry commercial that caught a bunch of flack? I'm going to post a clip on the side, but in this commercial, and I think this is the Canadian brand of Ancestry. So in this commercial, it catches a lot of backlash because it's supposed to take place during the time period of slavery. And as you can see, like, there's the black woman who's enslaved, and she's falling in love with this white man, and they're going to escape together and escape to freedom and have a new life. And so the issue is they're trying to romanticize the idea of slavery and kind of water down that experience. And you've seen it happen so many times. You see it with the school systems trying to kind of change the narrative of what happened with slavery. Oh, a lot of people moved to America for a better opportunity, including people from Africa. Some were just unpaid interns, Some came for positions of servitude because they knew it would give them a greater opportunity for a better life for their offspring and their future children and the grandchildren. That's pretty much what you're starting to see happen. And you also see the people who always love to say, get over it, it wasn't that bad, this, that, and the third. They ignore all of the generational accumulations that come from slavery as far as tangible wealth. But everything else, get over it, this, that, and the third. And so this commercial, for me, I see it as something dangerous, and it plays into that same role where it romanticizes the idea of slavery and sensationalizes it and makes it seem like it wasn't too bad, because listen, even though the people, they were brought over on the ships, but hey, they had an opportunity to come to America and fall in love with a guy named Greg. That's what America's about. Just a melting pot of colors, So I think it's an issue. And you know what? I remember I did a review on BET had some movie series come. It was called The Book of Negro. And I talked about, there was a scene that threw me off that made me not even like the rest of it. There was a scene where, and this again takes place during slavery. They go and they kidnap the people from the coast of West Africa and they have them on the ships. And so next thing you know, there's a scene where somehow there's a party on the ship. Like, I don't know if they wanted the people to exercise or what, but they go to the scene and you have the crew of the ship in charge. They're walking around with guns and everything. And then you see the man on the con goes, so he's playing this and everything like that. And then the women are on the boat dancing. And I'm like, wait a minute, now what kind of slave ship was this? Like, who? Now these people then got snatched away from their families. Some of them have been killed, raped, pillaged, starved to death. Because on those boats, like it was not a great Disney cruise line, okay? This is oppression cruise lines at its finest, okay? And so these people have been just going through the most traumatic experience, and they don't even realize it's about to get worse when they land, but somehow they got these people on the boat party, all down in here. I was like, what? When I tell you I turned it off, I'm done. That's it. So yeah, Ancestry, y'all can keep that. By the way, when it comes to something like Ancestry.com, I don't think black people should have to pay for it, because in reality, had we not been snatched and kidnapped by y'all folks, we wouldn't have to pay to find out where we're from. I feel like that should be a service that's free. You know what? Because at the end of the day, the history that we came from, we shouldn't have to pay to find out who we are, because at the end of the day, like, y'all already got enough money off of us. You got enough. We built the whole country, and you're still reaping the benefits. So damn, can we at least get the Ancestry for free? Anyway, moving on. Then I also wanted to send well wishes to John Singleton. As you know, at this point, he's suffered from a stroke. There's been some miscommunication about what his real condition is. Like, the grandmother said he was in a coma. The daughter's saying he's not in a coma. They put him in like a sedative state because he has all the blood thinners and everything like that. You don't know who John Singleton is. He's actually the first black Oscar-nominated movie director, which I have a problem with, because the Oscars had been out, since the 50s? And I'm like, it took until, Boys in the Hood came out for a black director to get an Oscar nomination? I said, okay, it took y'all 40, 50 years, huh? I guess. But he's directed movies like Boys in the Hood, Poetic Justice, Higher Learning. Higher Learning is when I learned to always side-eye Michael Rappaport, because he played that role too well. He played it too good for my liking. Oh, goodness. Man, that's that movie where Tyra gets shot. Like, dang, I like that scene. I hate that scene. That movie pisses me off every time I watch it. Like, man, why he had to shoot Tyra? I don't know if you've seen the movie, but I'm like, But anyway, best wishes to him. So hopefully everything works out with him in that aspect. Moving on. And then I see a lot of people are pissed off with Coko from SWV. Long story short, they had a series on where they were pretty much just kind of giving their commentary about a lot of the newer female vocalists out. And people thought that Coko was a hater. Mainly because, and to be honest, like, she's only said everything I feel like I've always been saying in my little R&B is Dead series. She pretty much just said, like, because I mean, it had several singers. It had artists like her, I think Kalani was in there, Queen Naja, Tiana Taylor. I'm missing some people. But I mean, pretty much, aside from Tiana Taylor, who I think they gave a lot of praise to, one of the arguments was that a lot of the newer singers just all kind of sound the same. It's like they all kind of have the same vibe going. I remember her saying she really liked the artist Her, but she kind of wished Her had a few up-tempo tracks, which is funny because I said that before in one of my videos as well. And so people took it as Coko being a hater and not liking anybody. I took it as Coko pretty much calling out the industry for what we've been saying for years, where The labels are afraid to invest in black music because they feel that we're no longer profitable because they can get white people to do what we already do and make more money from it. And so when there are R&B acts who do get on and they have a successful sound, the labels like to hop and stay on that same sound and not let the artist branch out and try anything too outside of the box because they feel like the investment is not worth it. And that's why I think you have so many of these artists who all make vibe music where it's nice, it sounds beautifully, melodic, it's great, but it's all right here. Some of it's very uneventful. It can be nice, but sometimes, when you want to put on that cranking music on a Saturday morning to clean up the house, sometimes you want an up-tempo. Sometimes you want to shake a shoulder or two every now and then. But when the music is just right here all the time, and, I wake up on Tuesday, I go to work, ooh, I'm tired, I'm an artist, I am scarred. And then the whole album sounds like that. Some people just like, eh. So I didn't take it as her being a hater. I just think it's going back to the fact that the labels no longer want to invest in talent. And they only will invest in a trick that they see, not calling a person trick, but just the trick as far as what it is they're putting out. They will only invest in that certain trick that works or that certain feature that's currently popular. They will not allow artists to branch out and do anything else. And that's why you're seeing such an influx of so many artists that are the same. Like, one of the great things about the era that Coko came out of, when you look at SWV, look at the kind of competition they had when they came out. All of those girl groups that were out, you had TLC, you had SWV, you had En Vogue, you had Jade, you had Black Girl, you had Good Girl, you had Total, you had Jeanne, you had Changing Faces, you had Cut Close, you had 702, you had Sister. There were I'm skipping the Braxtons, even though they didn't really jump off like that. Like, there were so many groups and all of them sounded so different, which is and Escape. And that's what made them all stand out. That's what made them all so unique. And not only unique with the kind of music that they make, but the way that they all sang. All of those groups had different kind of singers. If you listen to something like SWV, their vocal arrangements were very different from a group like Brownstone, which I always call the super choir, where they just came and you sounded like you were at the Kojic church convention with all you had all of that. And then you had a group like Total Help Me Sing. You had that kind of vibe. Like, it was just a very different time period. And that was just the groups. We didn't even talk about the female singers, because then, of course, all of the female singers were I don't like saying the word female. All of the women singers were very different. So, of course, you had an artist like a Toni Braxton, who was, she had a lower range, but had a very silky voice. And same thing with like somebody like Anita Baker. And then you had a Whitney Houston, or you had a Janet, who had a totally different sound from the crooners, because vocally she did things a little bit differently. She did a lot of layered vocaling and everything like that. You had somebody like Dionne Farris, who was totally in a totally different lane. Or Michelle, and I can never pronounce her last name wrong, Indigelo? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Totally different kind of artists. There were just so many different sounds that were out. And today, unfortunately, it's all the same thing. So I don't see Coko as being a hater with calling that out. I just saw it as her saying, yeah, the industry, y'all gotta mix it up some. Because the scary thing is, if the current trend that's out dies, all of those artists go down with it if they're not able to evolve and update their sound. Because that's just the way the industry always works, okay? Like, think of all the people who died when Crunk died. Think of all the people who died when the snap music died. Think of all the people who died when New Jack Swing died. And really, those genres didn't die, they just evolved into something else. But, if you're not able to go along with the different trends and change the sound, it kind of washes you out. Like, even with this new girl, Normani, she's a really great dancer, and I just can't understand for the life of me why they keep giving her all of these really low, right here, I don't want to say uneventful songs, but I just see her as a really great performer. So I'm like, why don't y'all give her something that you can really cut a rug to? Like, give her something that's going to shake the table. Y'all giving her all these tracks. Like, no disrespect, you could have given those songs to somebody else who kind of stays in that lane. To me, she seems like a visual artist. So she's going to need something that can balance her visual performances. So give her something with some kick to it. Like, y'all giving her all these nursing home songs. Like, ain't nobody trying to go to sleep now. We up. Anyway, and then I did want to get your opinion on this. So I saw that in the state of Florida, they just approved a measure that would allow teachers to actually be armed. The bill is called, let me see what I wrote down, SB 7030. And so participating school districts would allow teachers to be armed once they've completed 144 hours and undergone a psychological evaluation. And it's supposed to be called the Guardian Program. And there's been a lot of backlash going back and forth with all of the delegation and the voting, because people are saying this is crazy, but other people are saying no, because they don't know what to do as far as the people that keep going and shooting up everything and shooting up schools and churches and mosques and movie theaters and this, that, and the third. And so, the schools have an option to participate, and if they do participate, they'll get funding and everything like that, and the teachers will get a gun. My opinion, I don't think that's the solution to fixing some of the issues that you have. Plus, I just feel, it's funny that the schools never have enough money to get kids adequate books, to get kids adequate things that would actually increase the quality of their education. But when it comes to something with guns and weapons and war, we always got money for it. And so I have an issue with that. And secondly, to me, I don't see the idea of, 144 hours of training and self-evaluations and this, that, and third as far as their mental state to make sure that students would be safe. I just don't see that working, mainly because you see the same thing happen with police. A lot of these police who go and shoot all these unarmed black children and unarmed black men and just shoot people in general without paying attention because they fear for their life, a lot of these people have gone through extensive trainings before they even were given their badge. And I can definitely see a bunch of accidents happening right now. We already know, you see a lot of clips where the teacher and the student get in an argument. Sometimes these students get crazy and they hit the teacher, or they throw the ball at the teacher, or there's a fight in the classroom. The teacher isn't physically strong enough to break the fight up. I just see so many, and I don't want to put it into the universe or to speak into existence, but I see so many instances where I can see a teacher being afraid and accidentally shooting a student. I can see two students getting in an argument and the teacher didn't have the gun stored away properly and then one of the students shoot each other. I can see if there is an active shooter situation and that active shooter is already a student, they know where all the weapons are. And what if that teacher is just not really somebody who is coordinated and they try to rescue and do whatever in some scene where there's somebody with an active shooter and they shoot the wrong person? Because there's this assumption that we're just in the wild, wild west and all you need is a gun to take down, that whole idea of good guys and bad guys. That's kind of the narrative where you always think, they just, you just need a good guy with a gun to take care of the bad guy with the gun. I'm like, I don't think it quite works that way. And I remember when I read Gabrielle Union's book, and she was talking about how when she worked at the video store and the guy came in and tried to rob her, and when I think he dropped his gun and she picked it up and she tried to shoot him, but the gun jammed, and then the guy beat her up and pistol whipped her with the gun. I can see that happening to so many people. You got to think, a lot of teachers are older too, especially in Florida. A lot of these teachers 60, 70, in the same realm where you got all these people running for president who are older than the age of 75, you have some teachers who are that old, and you think they're going to be coordinated and have good aim, and half of them got Parkinson's and everything else to be trying to shoot a gun. And I'm not trying to make fun of nobody with Parkinson's, but what I'm trying to say is, to try to aim and shoot somebody who's doing whatever. Or what if there's a situation where that active shooter comes and they're holding a student hostage? I hope to God the teacher would not try to take that shot and hit the person. And then, you know what I mean? Because you saw that happen before where there was a situation in LA where the guy, it was a hostage situation. He was holding the baby and the police tried to snipe the guy and they accidentally shot the baby. I think it's a horrible idea. I really think it's a horrible idea. I don't really know what the solution is, but I just don't think guns work. But I mean, again, Florida, y'all have a history of ideas. Because remember the story with the school district that said, well, let's give the students rocks. Give them a backpack with rocks to throw at the at somebody who comes in with a gun. So I'm like, well, what happens if you throw the rock and you miss? And now they know that you was trying to. I'm not laughing, but you take the rock and. I know with me, like I said, I got a strong left hand. So when I throw, my stuff never goes straight. I throw and it goes straight to the right. So I know I'd have to position myself and whack. And God, if I miss, I'm like, dang, And then you already have the issue with too many people who want to be heroes anyway. One of the issues I've always had with people who live in this country is everybody thinks they're a hero. I don't know if it comes from our media and our movies and our TV shows, but everybody always wants to be a hero. So I definitely see somebody doing something stupid, trying to get the key to the city, and somebody gets hurt. So we'll see what happens with that. The last thing I did want to comment on, some of you guys were asking me my thoughts on Beyonce's take of Amazing Frankie Beverly's Before I Let Go. I think it's an okay version. I think it fits for 2019. I'm always going to be loyal to the original. The original to me, I just think that song, there's a nostalgic aspect to it. That's a song that it's a feel-good song that makes everybody feel good no matter what. I remember my dad used to say, when they used to be in the clubs back in the day when he was still trying to chase after my mama, they used to always say, when the club got too wild, there were always two songs the DJ would play in order to calm everybody down, when people started fighting. Because, it's that last hour at the club where the liquor's kicked in, folks are a little irate, some of the women, their feet hurt because they've been wearing them heels all day. And so people are a bit more irate. You step on somebody's shoe, it's about to be a fight. You elbow somebody on accident, it's about to be a fight. If somebody thinks you're talking to their girl, it's about to be a fight. If you spilled your drink on somebody, it's about to be a fight. But they would always say that when the club got too wild and it started getting a little reckless in there, the two songs that the DJ would always play was either Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing, because that would always kind of calm everybody calm everybody back down, and then everybody remembered what they were there for. Okay, well, let me get back to trying to court this lady or trying to court this guy and this, that, and the third. And then, they play that song, or they would play Amazing Frankie Beverly, Before I Let Go. And if you're like, oh, okay, you know what? You stepped on my shoe and I'm going to get you in the parking lot. But at least for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to see you in the parking lot, though. So at least for that moment, the club, you know, everything calmed down. Now, I can't speak for what happened when they got outside. So for me, I'm always going to be loyal to the original. But I do think her version is a fun version. And I can definitely see, like, at cookouts and stuff, them just playing both. I don't see it as a replacement. I think what pissed a lot of people off is, and it's a generational thing as well, and it's also kind of that whole stan culture, which I think is so annoying, where people, you love your favorite celebrity so much that you disrespect everybody else in favor of your celebrity. That crap is tired. But anyway, I can definitely see, you know, both being celebrated. I think the issue is people kept saying, oh, well, hers is the new version, we don't need the other one anymore. And I'm like, no, let's not get disrespectful, let's not get carried away. All right? But I do like her version. I thought it was a fun version. And I don't even think she really was like trying to push it. I think it's just something she did for fun and just kind of put it out there. You know, sometimes artists just like to make songs that are fun, and it is what it is. And, you know, the thing about music is that I always say with every artist that comes out, they're supposed to, you know, really run their race. And then when they pass the baton, you know, you look at all the ground that they've covered. And so they've covered all that ground, they built a foundation to help and make it easier for the next act. You know, especially these acts that really have a lot of talent and everything, that have really put in that groundwork. And so when that artist is finally ready to pass the baton or kind of fall back some and pass it to somebody new, that new artist is supposed to go from where they left off and carry on and carry it even further. So, you know, I think lately you see somebody like Beyonce get a lot of hate. A lot of people who are fans of acts from different eras sometimes don't like the fact that she's been so huge. And I look at it as, you know, she's huge because of the work that they did in the past, and it allowed so many doors to open. And because Beyonce already has great work ethic and is a very, very talented entertainer. Like, I definitely gassed up her Coachella performance. I did a review on it like a year ago when I streamed it. You know, because of the work of those in the past. And how, you know, the doors that were open, the fighting to get your videos played on MTV, the fighting to get larger record deal, you know, payouts, the fighting to get more singles released, the fighting to get the best producers, the fighting to make sure you had a team, the fighting to make sure that you got the same treatment as your white label counterparts. All of that fight that those artists from before, the Patrice Russians and George Benson and all of those from before, and the Michaels and the Princes and the Whitneys and the Janets and all of them, you know, the fighting that they did, they took it so far. And now that, you know, they're in a space where they get to just enjoy all of their success and just bask in the greatness that they are for those who are still alive. You know, somebody like Beyonce, who I think is also getting in this phase where she's getting ready to fall back and kind of, I think, go more into business ventures and maybe mentor up-and-coming artists and set the bar for the next one. You know, she's taken, you know, she went from where they left off and took it further. And then here's the next artist, and they take it further. It's not saying one is better than the other or one is more successful than the other. It's just saying that as that journey continues, look at the progress we've made. And so I think sometimes when it comes to music, people have to look at it that way. If you look at everything as a competition, like, oh, heck no, it'll make you not appreciate some of the artists. And so with her version, I thought it was cool. It's a fun song. My kids like it, kind of. The thing with music now, my kids, they're really into like trap and stuff, so they don't like anything that's too melodic. They be like, this don't slap though. This don't slap. I'm not gonna slap you. But anyway, so that's pretty much it for all my stories. Share your 2 cents. We'll do a few more videos this week because I want to do some catching up. And yeah, the second most requested video you guys had was R&B is Dead, so we'll definitely try to get one of those in ASAP. All right. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.